sou Alexandra Siqueira, eu sou responsável pela área de comunicação externa e marca da Shell no Brasil. E eu tô aqui hoje para falar um pouquinho para vocês de como a gente trabalhou a marca durante a pandemia no país. A Shell é uma empresa centenária de energia, uma empresa global de energia, que atua em mais de 80 países no mundo todo. E em relação à nossa marca, os nossos objetivos de marca, a gente começou a sentir muita necessidade de fazer uma coisa local, que a gente conversasse mais com a sociedade local e principalmente com a sociedade carioca e fluminense. Como é que a gente podia contar para o público que a Shell não é só posto de combustível, que a gente tinha uma gama de projetos sociais que beneficiam muito a sociedade de uma forma genuína, que não eram comunicados de uma forma corporativa, dentro de um conceito corporativo. Então nós trabalhamos muito e nós chegamos a um conceito chamado O Rio Tem Essa Energia. Eu chego a ficar até emocionada porque foi um conceito muito adequado para o momento que o Rio estava vivendo. A gente estava vendo o Rio há anos um pouco esmaecido, as pessoas perdendo o orgulho, de viverem aqui, de serem cariocas. E essa campanha, ela acabou pintando o Rio de amarelo e vermelho. A Shell faz investimentos em pilares estratégicos na educação, inovação, cultura e esportes. E a gente esse ano começou com muito gás, a campanha entrando no seu ano 2. Nós chegamos a fazer o Rio Open de tênis aqui no Rio. Estávamos com tudo pronto para fazer o Shell Apresenta Rei e Rainha do Mar e fomos pegos de surpresa pela pandemia. Bloqueamos, cancelamos a campanha na mesma semana. Foi orientação global da Shell também para todos os países onde a Shell atua, de que a gente não tivesse nenhum tipo de comunicação proativa, nada promocional, porque não fazia nenhum sentido. Tava o mundo todo preocupado com uma pandemia, insegura, com medo, sem saber o que vinha pela frente. Então a gente teve que dedicar os nossos recursos, o nosso time, para investir e apoiar a sociedade. E foi isso que a gente fez. Dentro da linha de cuidados com o consumidor final, a gente tinha que comunicar que a Shell continuava funcionando, os postos estão funcionando. Quem precisar sair para abastecer, a gente precisava estar lá para atender as pessoas. Então, foi feito todo um conjunto de ações para atender nos postos, doação de 60 mil vouchers de combustíveis para profissionais de saúde, com pagamento através do Shell Box, sem contato com o frentista, e a gente chamou de abastecidos de cuidados. Então, os consumidores sabiam que poderiam contar com a Shell nesse momento difícil. Em relação às ações corporativas, nós fizemos uma série de ações. A Shell ajudou na construção de 2 hospitais de campanha, junto com o Instituto Brasileiro de Petróleo e a Rede DOR, que foram parceiros. Fizemos doação de milhares de cestas básicas e kits de higiene para o público quilombola, para os pescadores, que são comunidades nas áreas de influência onde a gente atua, onde nós temos negócios. Doações para a classe artística, para a classe teatral, que é tão importante para a gente em função do Prêmio Shell de Teatro. A gente tem, por exemplo, 2 projetos, um projeto chamado Shell Iniciativa Jovem, ligado ao empreendedorismo, e o Prêmio Shell de Educação Científica. Dentro desses 2 projetos que foram mantidos, a gente colocou categorias específicas especiais para a Covid-19, com um projeto de soluções para a retomada do estado e da cidade. Toda a nossa fábrica de lubrificante, os nossos postos, as operações offshore estão trabalhando com o máximo de segurança desde o início. A Shell reforçou muito essa questão dos cuidados, que está já na essência dos valores da empresa, e criou, nesse momento, uma série de benefícios e tangíveis e intangíveis dentro de um programa chamado We Care. Nós cuidamos, nós temos cuidados com as pessoas. A Shell entregou todos os equipamentos, cadeira, tudo que a gente precisava para sentir esse conforto, esse cuidado em casa. A gente teve diversas sessões de meditação, de yoga, sessões ligadas à saúde mental, ao bem-estar físico e ao bem-estar emocional das pessoas, E isso tem sido um cuidado constante que faz a gente se sentir muito grato, muito privilegiado e muito feliz de poder contar com esse suporte. Foi um grande desafio pra gente ter que sair do trilho num momento que a gente estava tão encantado com a linha de comunicação que a gente vinha seguindo, uma linha nova que estava dando muito certo. O conceito do Rio Tem Essa Energia, mas a gente mostrou que a energia estava dentro da gente, está dentro da Shell, dentro da equipe que está tocando o projeto, e investimos na ajuda humanitária, nas ações que a sociedade de fato precisava naquele momento e ainda precisa. E agora o time está cheio de ideias para soluções e ajudar nesse processo aí de retomada para a gente voltar a se comunicar com o público, a falar novamente o que a marca quer falar, que é que as pessoas podem confiar na Shell.
A very good afternoon to all of you. My name is Peggy from Dutcham, and well, I would like to welcome you on this Friday, sunny Friday, just before we go into the weekend. We have another interesting lunch talk with the CEO of one of our Dutch companies. And no need to introduce the company anymore, because I think that the movie already said it all. I mean, we have on stage today, we have the company Shell, and I'm very happy, I'm very pleased, and very proud to welcome to you the president of Shell here in Brazil. Very warm welcome, André Araujo.
Well, thank you, Peggy, very much for being here today. It's a long time that I've been not as close as we should with Dutcham. Very good to be here.
Well, good to have you. Thank you already, André, for being our guest today. I think that indeed a lot of people, they know Shell, but obviously a lot of people, they don't know you. So I think it's a fantastic opportunity to meet the person behind Shell and to tell us something more about the company. But before talking about the company, who is André? Tell something about yourself, André.
All right. Let me share some thoughts. I am Brazilian. I had made my career in Shell. I have been in many places inside Brazil and outside Brazil. I was born here in Rio. I am from Laranjeiras, Flamengo Laranjeiras neighborhood. I am a fan of the Fluminense. I know that always football, when we talk with Brazilians, the topic comes to the mind. So I am a fan of Fluminense. I am from, I work with a pretty great family, and I'm very proud of, I would say, my background. I do recognize, Joe, and this is a topic that we talk quite a lot in Shell on the diversity and inclusion space, that I do recognize how privileged I was in being able to come from a middle class family, being able to do my studies in private basic fundamental schools. And I got my diploma in chemical engineering from University Federal of Rio de Janeiro. That is doing 100 years for Brazil. This is quite a lot. And I joined Shell. It was my first job. I've been working throughout my university time, but I started in the chemicals division. It's not common to have someone in the Brazilian CEO position coming from the chemicals piece of Shell. Maybe because Ben is over there, but those who knows Ben from Burton, he has also, his background was for chemicals. It's a joke, of course, but it's good to have someone that sometimes you usually don't recognize. Usually people are with a much more stronger exploration and production background in Shell. And this is my journey. Many jobs, very close with family, and pretty live space. Working in many places in Brazil. I have the privilege to work in The Hague and London and Washington. I cannot complain. It was a very great experience in my career.
Yeah, but now based back in Rio, I think.
Based back in Rio since 2010, and in this job as country chair. Different roles in the past, mainly on commercial and chemicals, natural gas, and now doing this role here in Brazil, in Rio, basically.
Yeah, and at home as well, as half of the world. We got a message that the sound is not so good, so we will try to see if we can speak loud and clearly. But there are some technical challenges always with these webinars. But let's try to see if it goes better along the way. André, talking about Shell. Well, maybe I should say it's a Dutch British, or is it the British Dutch company? I don't know exactly what I have to say now, but for sure it is a very long history. Founded already in 1897. It's considered as one of the largest companies in oil and gas. You're operating in 70 countries, employ approximately 92,000 people. It's quite impressive. But also Brazil, right? I mean, you have 900 people, different plants here in Brazil. How important is Brazil, Shell Brazil, for the global picture of Shell?
First, well, I try to increase volume here. I hope it works better for those that are listening. Just a reminder, in Brazil specifically, Shell is already here for 107 years, and we are quite familiar to work with within Brazil with all the ups and downs that this country has put in place. So you have to be professional to work in this country, but we are proof that this is possible, and we've been through that for quite a long. I would say that the fact that we do have the joint culture of Dutch and Brazil is, for me, a fantastic combination for quite a long time. And I learned, I don't know if the first expats that in my career that I connect in Shell, it was clearly for me a great combination because from the Dutch culture, and I lived that when I was in The Hague, we could sense quite a lot the organization, the planning, the anticipation, and it was really a great experience on how things should be done. But at the same time, we live in a country and a culture that I will not say lazy, but it's the way to look things always with quite a lot of flexibility because the uncertainties.
The fica tranquila, André, is that what you mentioned?
Fica tranquila and pode deixar.
Deus quiser, no?
Yes, Deus quiser. But I think that the combination of these different approaches helps to make us very resilient because we are accustomed to do with probably not for the youngers that are on the call with us today, but we lived a time of 30% inflation per month when I was in my early days in Shell. That's a long time ago. So we have a lot of flexibility to run in a uncertain world. And to be honest, I think that it's not a privilege for Brazil. Uncertainty is part of what is happening everywhere. And it's quite special, this combination of the Dutch and Brazilian culture. I think this makes a great country.
But do you still feel this Dutch involvement? Because obviously, I mean, your CEO, Mr. Van Beurden, is very Dutch. It's still managed in the top level by Dutch guys. But how Dutch is it still, Shell?
It's quite a lot. I think we are probably the more global company. If I look into the IOC, International Oil Companies, I can sense that maybe it's a little bit presumptuous from my side, but I think that we are more global than anybody else. But the headquarters in The Hague being still a huge playground in a positive way for a lot of Dutch individuals make us very close to Dutch. But I do recognize, I don't want to put other company names here, but we are probably more global than the others.
Yeah. Let's not talk about very much about the headquarters in Holland based, because that's another polemic, I think.
I know.
And I think our ambassador is listening at this conversation as well. So, but coming back on the importance of Shell here in Brazil, can you just give a bit of an idea of what does it mean, the Shell organization in Brazil? in the entire world? I mean,
Brazil represents for Shell today. I will talk about specifically, I will start with the deep water. That is a business that we are quite strong. I'm very happy to talk about climate change, but I will not shy away to say about our position, and we have a strong position in deep water. We represent more of the half of the volume that globally Shell produces in deep water, specifically after our partnerships with Petrobras. I would say that from cash flow, CapEx investment, potential for growth, and now including new energy spaces, we are in the top 6 level, and that ranges from what of the lenses that you're looking, contribution or volume or CapEx investment. It ranges a little bit, but it can be clearly from number 1 to number 6, depending on the indicator that you're looking. We are very relevant to the group, and we sense that importance in all the more than 1,000 visitors from Shell that I had last year in Brazil. So there is not a single area of Shell that does not want to be seen or represented in Brazil.
Exactly.
Maybe the pandemic helped me to avoid getting too much help in Brazil, but anyway.
Yeah, well, I think it's worth saying this because indeed it's not an easy country, as you mentioned already, Brazil. But I think it has absolutely its value in the global picture also for Shell. So, and I hope that all these visitors, they fly KLM, by the way, when they come to Brazil, helps the Dutch companies a bit. Now, by far, as I said, it's one of the largest company in production of oil and gas. But I think also Shell is very relevant when it comes down on technology, innovation. I mean, you've been driving your company through technology and innovation constantly. How difficult is it to have this innovation, drive for innovation, and how important also is Brazil when it comes down to innovation and technology?
Well, I have to be honest. It's not we don't see it as a major challenge. It's in fact a major tool for us to be able to survive throughout our history. Technology is close to us for quite a long time. I doubt the number today is that level. Probably I'm talking about this COVID time. But we are a company that constantly used to invest more than $1 billion per year in R&D. And that is quite relevant. I'm sure the number is smaller this year for many reasons. The challenge is always on how to use this money right and how to have the right balance. And I'm coming back to Brazil very soon. And there is a major step change throughout these years with the realization that we, as different as it was in the past, we cannot do everything ourselves, and we have to work very much through partnerships. And that is, I would say, if I have to raise one of the challenges, is usually large companies have an arrogant behavior and try to pretend that they know everything. I think everything that we are going through the last 10 years makes clear that we need to be work with being humble and try to understand that partnering is very good. In Brazil specifically, there is an obligation to invest part of your proceeds coming from deep water in R&D in country. And we are doing that and more than that. So we have this year, again, despite all the cuts, we are investing in R&D in Brazil above 250 million reais. And probably there are today within 800 and 1,000 researchers that are directly involved with Shell in many universities and research centers. And we are doing many projects. And more recently, we are incorporating in our R&D outcomes the same strategy that Shell is using worldwide to be more focused on nature-based solutions and find ways to talk about carbon emissions. So part of our investments that were in the R&D space in Brazil, that it was mainly driven to the upstream sector, we are now trying to incorporate more of the efficiency, and we have developed with FAPESP in São Paulo pretty much a good number of starting research in many areas on the CO2 abatement.
Because indeed, talking about climate and climate impact, I mean, with all this Corona and COVID, sometimes we might have the impression that other problems are not existing in the world anymore, but they still do, right? Climate change is one of the key focus points of Shell for sure. You also underlined, even this year, your CEO said we really want to become the net zero emission company by 2020 or even sooner. In your opinion, what kind of elements do we need to achieve this? Because it's still quite a big challenge, looks to me.
It is a big challenge, but at the same time, it's a great opportunity. It's not that I always look the cup half full, but I do have to recognize that the pandemic put the world, and I can say clearly, corporations, to look into pretty much different eyes when we look for, I will use an expression that is on fashion now to talk about it, on the ESG space. It's very hard to see how we cannot recognize the huge amount of social vulnerability in places that we work as an organization. And we have to keep finding ways to address. So that is both on the social, on the environmental side. So despite it's challenging, despite the price of oil has dropped dramatically, despite we have to do a little bit of the traditional formula to preserve the organization as well, talking beyond the care, everything that we're doing with the staff. Happy to talk about that, but looking from the future of the company, we focus on cash continuity and care of people. But when we look into the cash, we have to go through the cuts and the adjustments that the current price of oil is impacting all the industry. But we have clearly in this period reassured our commitment and increased our commitment in the energy transition space, and to find ways and on scenarios, but also in part of our acts. There is a great process in the organization that there's not too much to talk at this moment on how we are organized ourselves in a process that we are developing, but clearly on the new energy space, there will be a much strong focus. And we are very active in Brazil in our policy and advocacy to be visible and be able to try to influence the climate debate.
Yeah. Well, I maybe also refer to what a global study that Shell came with, what is called SKY, where you made a sort of a pathway, right, in order to achieve the goals of the Paris Agreement. Now, it's a really interesting one because it was considered, by the way, as one of the most optimistic scenarios to get to a lower carbon energy system. A few elements out of this was stopping deforestation. And I know it's a sensitive one here in Brazil, but I also know that a lot of people are looking at Brazil with scary eyes because, I mean, this is a hot topic. How do you see this? I mean, how can we stop deforestation here in Brazil? What is your personal opinion about this?
Well, I first want to talk briefly on the SKY scenario. And again, it's quite dynamic. I can later share a little bit of some other thinkings that it's coming. But the intention of the SKY scenario was not to play an optimistic scenario, usually show that, by the way, this year we are celebrating the 50th anniversary of our activity in scenarios. Usually we worked with two scenarios. We always know that none of these scenarios will materialize, but due to the importance of the Paris Agreement and the climate change discussion, there was a need to put in place a scenario of what are the possibilities that should happen for the world to meet and reduce the growth in temperature in 1.5%, 1.5 degrees centigrade. I try to avoid only looking in what is happening on the newspaper. To be very honest, it's quite terrible what is happening at this moment. The peak of fires, and unfortunately, there is this quite a lot of debate, almost trying to see what is the reality. But I can recognize at the same time that there is a huge amount of activity in place happening at the same time. And that is probably where I'm putting more of my hope and more of our efforts as an organization in Brazil. So I am very active to work, and my team, and I'm not talking only me personally, the organization, to work with the technical team in the environmental ministry. There are some programs in place like Floresta Mais that is coming to place. The perspective to have not only the Amazon, but the forest to be a place from a business angle. I think that is a great opportunity for Brazil to be. I mentioned in an engagement that I had, I think it was at the beginning of this year, Brazil can be a kind of a pre-salt of oxygen. There is a major possibility that can bring, if well designed, can bring benefits to the population that is over there. Clearly, there is an interest from our side when part of our program is in being a net zero company in 2050, there is a strong element to reduce the scope 3 of our customers. And part of our ambition is to reduce by 65% our customers' emission, and partnering with customers to see how that can be addressed. So when we talk about forest as a possibility for business, we are not putting this to reduce the emissions and accountability of our own operations, but we are looking and try to find ways to support, and clearly the forest business, if I can say this way, is a great opportunity that can be that.
Yeah. Well, I think indeed Sky was is an joint action, not only of companies, society, but also government. I think it's need to be covered by all the parties. Increasing growth of demand for energy worldwide. If you see the world is asking more and more energy in order to supply all of this energy needed. There is a need for the energy switch. We talk also a lot about electrification. Sorry. How do you see that in Brazil? Is Brazil ready to make this move towards this kind of energy?
Yes, it is, and there is quite a lot ongoing. To be very fair, and please don't take me this as shying away from eventually some tough conversation. But Brazil has a clean energy matrix already, and I don't want to use this as a way not to talk about the tough things that we do have. So the understanding that the local energy matrix is a cleaner one is quite a reality. I think that electrification is a way for Brazil, even with us being part of the largest joint venture in Brazil that produce ethanol. So there is a normal debate in Brazil that I think it will be part of the choices that Brazil makes in what are the path of that Brazil wants. And for us, to be very honest, there is not a single path. So Brazil has some strength in the biofuels space, and there is quite a lot of things that has been done. But at the same time, electrification is a major possibility for growth. So what we see is a great opportunity to develop even much more renewables. In shell scenarios in Brazil specifically, we do see solar as a major resources that will take the large amount of growth. Investments in oil and gas, to be very honest, they will not disappear. They will stay, particularly as Pre-Salt is a province that is here to stay. And for those that are not aware and not familiar with oil and gas, we still need to invest a huge amount of money even to keep the current level of production. It is sometimes it's incredible the amount of money that you put in place, and at the end of the day, your production is the same one that you had last year. But it's like a mining; it goes down, and if you need to have still oil, even if you export the oil, as we do from the Brazilian production, we do understand that the areas that are the most resilient and competitive will stay in the business. There is a clear recognition that renewables will take a good amount of the growth, and power and electrification is one of the business that Shell has selected of areas to growth, and we already try to translate this in Brazil.
Yeah. And maybe aligning to that question, I see somebody in the audience asking a question. It's from Dutra, KPMG. He is asking. It seems Brazil is emerging fast from the crisis, and the oil and gas sector is one of the drivers for growth. One good sign is the OPI's movement, which can be a barometer or a thermometer for the growth. What do you think will be the biggest challenge to be back on track for the expected growth that we had before the pandemic? It's a long question, but it's an interesting one, I think.
Thank you, Dutra, for the question. My major focus when I engage with government is competitiveness. Let me talk briefly. I know that many people don't like to talk about oil and gas, but let me keep with that a little bit. On the oil and gas specifically, there will be clearly competing as in Shell. The CapEx has a cap. Everybody will be fighting internally in Shell for who has the best project. And myself as country chair, I'm fighting with another 79 country chairs that are bringing to the board what everybody calls the best project in place. So competitiveness of the project is a major importance for Brazil to keep attracting investment. That is not only from the oil side, making jokes here on the oil piece, but that extended as well to energy projects and power projects as well. So competitiveness and being able to not bring surprises, as in the energy space, a lot of what we do is to invest in the long term. Things can change, but we should not surprise this project with novelties, as after you have taken an investment decision mode. And luckily, up to now, Brazil has been quite a good country that has changed routes, but contracts are respected.
Okay, thank you, Dutra, for the question. Stepping a bit away from the oil and gas, let's talk about something else, André. Inclusion and diversity. Shell has been taking often, inclusion and diversity is one of the key values of Shell, for sure. Let's take the example of female empowerment. I like this topic, especially when we're here in Brazil. And if I combine this with oil and gas, technology, innovation, I mean, how are you working here in terms of empower female position, drive gender equality within Shell?
It's a long history, a long challenging space. Not sure if there is any women from Shell listening us here. Probably they would not like too much what I will say, but we had made a lot of progress on specifically on the gender space. Far away to where we want to. It's a key topic. We had revisited throughout the years possibilities on how we select, how we recruit, how we promote, how to talk about inclusion, how to ensure that the debate, awareness, speak up. There are so many disciplines in place. And what I want, when I mentioned that on the women's side, the situation is a little bit better, is I'm looking into demographics in Shell, and I can see pretty much as we develop other networks in the organization, for instance, on participation of the Black community, or also people with disability, and on the LGBT space, probably the gap is so huge that is quite uneasy to be in the dialogue when we see the numbers not reflecting the society. So we are putting a huge effort in this space to try to find ways that we want to find ways to bring talents, even that they don't have the competence ready. This is a pretty large debate, and I know that we can talk about this for ages. Yeah.
But I think André, maybe we don't have anybody from Shell for the moment in our inclusion and diversity committee at Dutcham. So maybe this is a nice invite to you, to someone of your team participating in our committee, and try to see how we can make the world a bit better all together with the Dutch companies. So I will come back on that later on with you. Now, looking at the time. Because we only have 1 minute left, looking at Corona now, I mean, it's hard for a president of a company such as Shell to keep up with the challenges in terms of business and in terms of goals. But how do you cope with the mental health of your people? 900 people depending on you here in Brazil. How do you manage this? How can you make sure that they are? We saw a few things already in the video, but you personally, how do you contribute and make sure that the people are fine?
I think it's two ways in way we're going. First, I try to walk the talk. I try to behave and demonstrate things that are important on the mental health. I took break. I am setting my own time for meals and lunch every day. I have a specific time that I block my calendar for that space. But I think most importantly, we are building the knowledge as we go. We started with a huge amount of activities, engagement every week, support to the families, but more recently, I would say, I believe since July, we had extended mental support to all the organization, their dependents as well, even that they were not as a formal part of the formal dependents. We had incentivized people working from home. Probably one of the threats today is we have some people that cannot stand to be at home anymore, and they're finding challenge to do that. But it's probably one of our serious challenges at the beginning, at the pandemic. At the beginning, our major challenge was related to get people in the lubricant plants or at the offshore activities. That has been it's a new reality. There is so many things, new realities that is coming through the pandemic. Today, I would say that mental health is our most challenge. I do believe that we have all the best practices the market is doing. But for me, as a leader in Shell, the most challenging is finding the hidden spots in this organization and working through the network of leaders and incentivizing people both to speak up. That it's, I remember that I said that in my first webcast in March to the organization, that is, it's okay not to be okay. And we are talking about this since the beginning. And so for me, my major concern is someone there that we cannot see. And I cannot do that alone. And I do need for people to reach each other and try to find ways that the tools are there.
Yeah.
And not that I'm not, I'm open for new things.
But I think
ever. But it's how to be as close as possible, preserving as well the individuals. There are some people that don't want to talk about mental health.
exactly.
You have this extreme positions here.
Exactly, but I think it's indeed a good example to say that you can sometimes say, no, it's not good if you ask the question, how are you?
Yes.
I mean, I think it's perfectly fine. André, very last question to you. I mean, you look very positive, down-to-earth person. What would be your message to the audience that is listening to us today in these difficult Corona times? What would be your last positive message to the world?
Well, I would say one that it's pretty much personal, related with the mental health that we just spoke. It is, I do understand that everybody is going through the uncertainties, and that impacts all of us, including myself as individuals. And one thing that I try to do is to keep few buddies and few people very close to me that has a lot of empathy for me, not sympathy. They have empathy and they can help me when I'm not on my good days. The second thing it is, we can talk a lot about all the uncertainties, but there's a lot of things that we can do that can give pleasure and success for us. At the same time, it's up to you to pick what are the alternatives that you do have, but try to concentrate on things that you believe that you can do. And if you're not able to do that, ask for help.
Mm-hmm. And I think there are sometimes much more things that we can do, more than we can even believe, right?
That's correct. That's correct. Try to focus on what you can do that helps the uncertainty times.
Mm-hmm. Okay. André, I'm looking at the time. I thought it was a very nice conversation. I would love to continue for another hour with you, but I think we need to respect time because you have a very busy agenda. Allow me to thank you very much for this very nice conversation. And,
thank you, Peggy.
And hope to see you soon within Dutcham for another event or for other occasions, and hope that we can see each other physically in another event of Dutcham. Thank you very much for your contribution.
Thank you. Thank you for the time and the opportunity to be here with the Dutcham community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you to the audience, obviously, as well, for joining us today for another CEO Talk. We have new events coming up, obviously. We don't stop with this. I would like to wish you a very good Friday, very good weekend, relax, and hope to see you very soon at Dutcham. And in the meantime, please don't forget that you can always follow us on LinkedIn, because what you like, we like. So just give us a follow on LinkedIn. That would be really nice. Thank you very much. Have a good weekend, and André, see you very soon.
Thank you.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.